The boy was already hungry. That was the part that mattered, because the choice cost him something. It was late afternoon on Highway 41. A forgotten stretch of road, the kind people only use when they are lost or desperate or running out of options. Miles. Carter stood on the gravel shoulder, holding a thin paper bag. The paper was worn soft from his hands from gripping it too tight inside. Was a sandwich, peanut butter on white bread, and a bruised apple brown on one side. That was dinner and breakfast. And maybe lunch tomorrow if he stretched it right, if he was careful. His stomach had stopped growling hours ago. Now it just ached, a dull, constant emptiness, the kind you learn to ignore, the kind that becomes normal. Ahead of him, a white sedan sat. Crooked on the shoulder, hood open wide, steam rising into the cold air like smoke signals. Like a cry for help, an elderly woman sat inside the car, rubbing her hands together, her breath fogging the windows, her shoulders hunched against the cold am. Old man stood beside her, staring at the engine like it had betrayed him, like he could fix it with anger. 3 cars passed, their engines loud, their windows up. One slowed. The driver looked, then sped up again. All of them kept going. Miles noticed the looks, the way eyes cut toward him, then away fast, the tightening shoulders, the doors locking. The fear, a black boy alone on the side of the road in rural Georgia. Miles knew that look. He had seen it before. In stores, at gas stations, in the silence that followed him down certain streets. He also saw something else. The woman shivering, not just from cold, something worse. He stood still, feeling his stomach twist. Feeling the cold cutting through his thin jacket. Feeling the weight of what he was about to do. Then, he opened the bag, looked at the sandwich one last time, memorized it, and walked toward them. Miles Carter was 11 years old. And already tired in ways children should not be. It kind of tired that lives in your bones, that makes you feel older than you are, that steals something you cannot name. He lived in Mon, Georgia, a town people forgot. A town that used to matter, before factories closed, before money left, before hope followed, before the young people learned to leave and never come. Back population 2,847 and shrinking. His house sat 2 blocks from the railroad tracks, paint peeling like old skin steps, uneven and dangerous when it rained. A place that rattled every time a train passed, 4 times a day, every day, a reminder that the world kept moving and Mon stayed still inside. Lived his grandmother Ruth Carter, 70 years old, worked 32 years at the hospital, former aide, strong hands once. Now stiff with arthritis, knuckles swollen. Fingers bent, medicine stretched month to month because insurance ran out, because Medicare did not cover everything, because choices had to be made, pills or food heat or doctor visits. Living or surviving. Miles' mother died 3 years earlier, breast cancer diagnosed late because there was no time for checkups, no money for prevention, no insurance for early detection. She fought for 18 months, lost weight, lost hair, lost hope slowly. Then all at once, Miles remembered her last words, take care of Grandma, be good, be strong. He was 8 years old. There was no father in the house. Never had been. No photos on the walls. No explanations that stayed, just a name Miles did not say out loud, and questions that hurt too much to ask. Miles learned early how to be quiet, how to stretch food, how to make one meal last 2 days, how to wake before dawn so his grandmother would not hear his stomach growl, would not see him cry, would not know how scared he was. Every morning he packed the same lunch, whatever remained from yesterday, sometimes a piece of bread, sometimes crackers, sometimes nothing at all. At school, teachers called him polite, respectful, quiet, well-behaved. Classmates called him quiet too, but in a different way, the kind that meant invisible. The kind that meant forgotten. The system called him free lunch, eligible Title I student, at risk, economically disadvantaged. No one called him lucky. Because no one was looking close enough after school. Miles did not go home right away. He could not. The house was too quiet, too empty, too full of things he could not fix. He walked instead, picked up aluminum cans along the highway. 5 cents each at the recycling center. Sometimes he made $2, sometimes 50 cents. Every penny mattered. He helped neighbors carry groceries for $1, sometimes 2, sometimes just a thank you. He mowed lawns when grass was still growing, raked leaves when they fell, shoveled snow the one time it snowed, ran errands. No one asked him to run, fix things. No one asked him to fix. He learned something important doing that. People got used to him being there, said thank you, smiled, maybe gave him $1, and then forgot him again. By the next day, by the next week, he was gone from their memory. That was what being invisible felt like. Not ignored exactly, just unseen, present but not noticed, helpful but not remembered. And Miles had learned to live in that space, the space between needed and wanted, between useful and valued, between seen and remembered. It was safer there, quieter, less disappointing. The couple noticed him before he reached the car. The old man straightened, put his hand on the car door. His jaw tightened. The woman froze, her hand on the door handle, her eyes went wide. Miles stopped a few steps away, far enough to seem safe, close enough to be heard. He kept his hands open out to his sides, where they could see them. His voice came out steady, calm, the way his grandmother taught him. The way survival demanded. Excuse me, sir, are you okay? The man hesitated, his eyes measuring, calculating risk, making judgment. Scar trouble, he said finally, waiting for help. Miles looked down the road. Empty, nothing but asphalt and pine trees, no help coming, not soon, maybe not at all. He saw the woman then, really. Saw her lips pale blue at the edges, her hands shaking, not just shivering, something worse, hypothermia maybe, or panic. Or both. My grandma says cold makes circulation worse. Miles said she should stay warm, get inside the car, close the door. The woman looked at him, then past his worn jacket, past the assumptions, past the fear, really looked. What is your name, sweetheart? Miles. She smiled. Slow at first, then real, the kind of smile that remembered something, someone, a face from long ago. Miles opened the paper bag. The smell drifted into the cold air, simple, ordinary, precious. He held it out, his last meal. His only meal. It is not much, but it is warm. It will help. The woman shook her head immediately. Fast automatic. Oh no, sweetheart, that is yours. You need that you keep it. Miles lied. The words came easy too, easy. He had practiced. I already ate. I am fine. I do not need it. The lie sat heavy in his chest. Tasted worse than hunger, but he did not take it back. The man watched quietly, his anger gone now, something else in its place, his eyes sharp, studying the boy, the worn shoes, sole separating from the toe, the frayed cuffs, threads hanging, the empty bag, the way Miles stood. Shoulders back, chin up, pretending not to be cold, pretending not to be scared, pretending. This did not cost him everything. Cars kept passing, faces turning to look, then looking away, not stopping, never stopping. Woman reached out slowly, took the sandwich, her hands trembling. Tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Miles nodded once, swallowed the ache in his throat, then he pointed down the road away from town. Toward Hope, there is a farmhouse about a mile and a half that way. White mailbox, red barn. They have a phone you can call from there. The man started to speak. Started to reach for his wallet, started to say wait, before they could argue, before they could offer money he could not take. Before they could see him break, Miles turned and ran. Miles ran until his lungs burned, until his legs shook, until the cold air felt like knives in his chest. He did not look back, did not slow down, could not. The farmhouse appeared through the trees, exactly where he said it would be. He had passed it 100 times, walking, collecting cans, memorizing roads, learning where help lived. Mrs. Henderson answered the door, looked at him with concern, her face creased with worry. What is wrong, baby? Miles explained between gasps. The car, the couple, the cold, the woman shaking. Mrs. Henderson did not hesitate, got on the phone immediately. Called her son who had a truck, called the garage in Tifton, called people who could help. Who would help you want something to eat, she asked. Her kitchen smelled like cornbread, like home. Miles' stomach screamed yes, begged, pleaded. His mouth said no thank you, ma'am, I am fine. She looked at him hard, knowing, but did not push. He waited on the porch, watching the road, shivering now, the adrenaline gone. The cold settling in. 20 minutes later, headlights appeared, a pickup truck, then another, then the tow truck from town. By the time they all made it back to Highway 41, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. The sedan started on the third try, coughed, sputtered, lived. The road came back to life. The old man climbed out of the pickup truck, walked straight to Miles, each step deliberate, purposeful. He reached for his wallet, pulled out cash bills, too many 20s, 50s. Miles stepped back, shook his head. No, sir. The man frowned, confused, almost offended. Son, take it, you earned this. You helped us. Miles shook his head again, firmer this time. My mom said, if you charge for kindness, it stops being kindness, it becomes something else. A transaction, not a gift. The man stared at him long, hard, like he was trying to memorize every detail. The face, the voice, the words, then something broke open in his expression. Something old, something buried deep, something that hurt. He knelt down, slow, stiff, until they were eye level. What is your last name, son? Carter. Miles Carter. The man nodded slowly. Extended his hand, formal, respectful. I am Richard Holbrook. This is my wife, Eleanor. Thank you, Miles Carter, for everything, for more than you know. They shook hands. Miles' small hand in the man, large grip, a moment that felt important, heavy, like a door opening. Then the cars pulled away. Taillights disappearing into the dark red lights, fading, gone. Miles walked home alone, stomach empty, heart full, feet dragging, not understanding yet what he had just changed, what he had just started. That night in a quiet hotel room 2 counties over. Richard Holbrook sat awake, the lamp casting shadows. His wife Eleanor beside him, asleep, finally holding an empty sandwich wrapper, clutching it like treasure. She would not let it go. Richard's phone glowed in the darkness, files, notes, search engines, public. Record school websites. A name: Miles Carter, 11 years old, student at Mon Elementary School, honor roll every semester, perfect attendance even though dead mother Melanie Carter died 3 years ago. Age 34, sick grandmother Ruth Carter, age 70, fixed income, no savings, living 2 blocks from the railroad tracks, in a house the county had flagged foundation issues, roof damage. Code violations pending. Richard whispered a name to himself, a name he had not said in years, could not say without breaking. Daniel, his son, gone 15 years, car accident, drunk driver. 17 years old, a week before graduation. Daniel had been kind to, reckless with it, gave away lunch money, skipped meals to help friends. Got in trouble for caring too much. Richard had been angry, then told him to be smart, to think of himself first, to stop being naive, to grow up. 2 weeks later, Daniel was gone, and Richard spent 15 years building an empire, making millions, billions, buying everything, fixing nothing, losing purpose, losing meaning, losing the point of any of it, wondering what kindness cost, wondering if Daniel had been right, wondering what mattered. Now he knew he had just met it on Highway 41, hungry, cold, 11 years old, giving away his last meal to strangers, expecting nothing, asking for nothing, everything. Daniel believed everything. Richard had forgotten everything that mattered, standing on the side of a road, in a worn jacket, holding an empty bag. The next morning, Richard made calls to lawyers, to accountants, to people who owed him favors, to people who did not dare say no. He asked questions, made arrangements, set things in motion, pulled strings, moved mountains. Eleanor watched him work, saw something in his face she had not seen in years, something alive, something awake. What are you doing? She asked. Richard looked up, his eyes clear for the first time in forever. Something I should have done a long time ago, something Daniel would have wanted, something that matters at 9. That morning, a black SUV turned onto Miles Street, quiet, deliberate, purposeful, asterisk. The knock came just after 4, not loud, but firm, polite. Professional. Miles answered because his grandmother was sleeping. Her medicine made her tired, made her rest. A woman stood on the porch, briefcase in hand, credentials ready, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Miles Carter. Yes, ma'am, I am here on behalf of someone you helped last night. May I come in? Miles hesitated, looked back at the house, the worn furniture, the patched walls, the poverty they could not hide. Then he stepped aside, opened the door wider. The woman sat carefully, introduced herself. Catherine Pierce, attorney. The truth unfolded slowly, carefully, like opening a wound. Richard Holbrook was not just wealthy. He was powerful. Foundations that moved millions, corporate boards that shaped industries, influence that reached governors, senators, presidents, and he had been searching for 15 years for a way to honor his son, for a purpose that mattered, for someone who understood what kindness cost. What Catherine offered was not charity. It was commitment, full scholarship, any school. Miles wanted private, public, whatever fit. College paid for, graduate school, medical school, law school. Whatever he chose, healthcare. For his grandmother, full coverage, best doctors, specialists, physical therapy, all medicine. Everything. A new house, not a mansion, but safe, warm, stable. No more rattling trains, no more leaking roof. No more cold, and a trust fund, managed, carefully invested. Wisely enough to ensure Miles never went hungry again, never had to choose, never had to sacrifice. Miles sat silent, processing, calculating, looking for the catch. Waiting for the price. What do I have to do? He asked finally, his voice small, careful. Catherine smiled, gentle, real. Nothing. Live your life, finish school, be yourself. Mr. Holbrook does not want recognition. He does not want publicity. He wants you to have what you need, what you deserve. What should have been yours all along? Miles felt something break loose in his chest, something hard. Something he had been holding too tight for too long. Why me? Catherine leaned forward, her voice steady. Because yesterday, you gave away your last meal to strangers without hesitation, without expectation, without thinking about yourself first, because that is who you are, and Mr. Holbrook wants to make sure the world does not punish you for it, asterisk. But not everyone was happy. 3 days later, a man showed up outside Miles' school, waiting by the fence. Calvin Reese. Local businessman, property developer, the kind of man who smiled with his mouth, never his eyes. He cornered Miles, friendly at first. Then not. You know what is going to happen. Now people are going to talk, going to wonder what you did, what you said. What story you told to get all this? Miles stayed quiet. Let him finish. Smart kid like you knows how things work around here. This town does not like change, does not like outsiders coming in, throwing money around, making promises. Maybe you should tell them thanks, but no, thanks save everyone some trouble. Miles met his eyes. Steady, no siree smile vanished fast, replaced by something cold. You are making a mistake, boy. Your grandmother. She has got a lot of years left. Hopefully would be a shame if Something happened if her medicine got more expensive, if that house had problems, code violations. You understand what I am saying? Miles pulled free. His voice quiet but clear. I understand you are scared, Reese. Blinked what you are scared because if we get help, other people might ask why they cannot get help too. And then you will have to answer. Why you own half the houses in this town and all of them are falling apart. Why rent keeps going up. While wages stay the same, why you fight every school budget, every health clinic, every library expansion. You are not worried about this town. You are worried about yourself. Reese's face went red. You do not know what you are talking about. Miles stepped back, turned to leave. I know what my mom taught me, that bullies are just scared people who forgot how to be kind. He walked away, did not run, did not look back, did not give Reese the satisfaction asterisk. The town changed slowly. Then all at once, the library that had been closing early got a grant new books. New computers, extended hours, programs for kids. The clinic that operated 2 days a week expanded, hired a nurse practitioner, a physician assistant. Offered services people had not seen in years, dental, vision, mental health. The church roof stopped leaking finally after 10 years of buckets and prayers. The community center reopened. Basketball hoops, fixed lights, working programs starting. The school got new textbooks, not hand-me-downs, not outdated, new band instruments. Art supplies, sports equipment. Things that made learning feel possible. None of it had Richard Holbrook name on it, but everyone knew. Everyone understood, and Miles kept going to school, kept doing homework, kept helping his grandmother. Kept being himself, except now he was not hungry. And his grandmother smiled more, slept better, moved easier, had hope again. People treated Miles differently, though. Some with respect, some with resentment, some with curiosity, some with suspicion. He learned to navigate it all, stayed humble, stayed focused. Stayed kind asterisk. 6 months later, things were different. Miles' grandmother Ruth sat on their new porch, a real porch with railings that did not wobble. Steps that did not creak, watching her grandson. He had grown taller, filled out, started to look less tired. Less old, but he still woke up early, still walked through town, still helped, still saw people. One Friday afternoon, Miles did something new, set up a table on Highway 41, same spot where he met the Holbrooks, same stretch of forgotten road boxes. Of sandwiches, bottles of water, fruit, granola bars, nothing fancy, just food. A sign that said free, take what you need. Cars slowed, some stopped surprised. Grateful, suspicious, hungry families, truckers, people traveling through, people just getting by, people who understood, no questions asked, no judgment, no strings, just food and kindness. And the memory of being hungry after 2 hours. The boxes were empty. Miles packed up, smiled, did it again the next Friday and the next. And the next. Other people started helping. Bringing donations, making sandwiches, volunteering time. It became a thing, a tradition. The Friday table on Highway 41 news spread. Other towns started copying, other highways, other tables, other kids who remembered being hungry. The idea grew, multiplied. Became something bigger than Miles, something that belonged to everyone. Richard Holbrook watched from a distance, never interfered, never took credit. Just funded it quietly, made sure it continued. One day he drove out, stood in line like everyone else. Miles recognized him immediately. Mr. Holbrook. Richard smiled, tired, grateful, just wanted to see it for myself. Miles handed him a sandwich. No charge. They stood together, watching people come and go, watching kindness multiply. You know what Daniel would say, Richard asked quietly. Miles shook his head. He would say, this is what matters, not the money, not the recognition, this people helping people because they can. Because they should. Miles thought about that. Do you think kindness can change things, real things, systems? Richard looked at the line, the volunteers, the simple act repeated. It already has. 2 years later, Miles stood in front of his 8th grade class, giving a presentation. The teacher had asked everyone to talk about something that mattered. Most kids chose sports, video games, hobbies, things that felt safe. Miles chose differently. He talked about Highway 41, about a cold afternoon, about a choice. I was hungry, he said, and I gave away my food. Some people think that was stupid. Maybe it was, but something happened, not because I was special, but because someone noticed, really. Noticed and decided to do something about. I've paused, looked around the room. We think systems are too big to change. That problems are too complicated, that we are too small to matter, but systems are just people making choices over and over. And when enough people make different choices, the system changes. It has to. A girl in the back raised her hand, but you got lucky. Most people do not get that. Miles nodded. Honest, you are right. I did get lucky. But luck is not the point. The point is what happened. Before the luck, what happened when nobody was watching, when there was no reward? When it cost me something, that is, when it mattered most. He showed pictures, the Friday table, the clinic expansion, the library programs, the other towns doing the same. thing. The movement growing one choice, he said, led to another, lead to another, lead to this, but it started with being hungry and choosing someone else anyway. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that means people are listening, really listening. You do not need money to be kind. You do not need power to help. You just need to see people really see them and decide they matter. More than comfort, more than convenience, more than fear, everything else, everything good starts there. Asterisk, that spring Miles graduated. 8th grade top of his class, Richard and Eleanor Holbrook came. Sut in the back clapped when he walked across the stage. Afterwards, they met outside. Away from the crowds, Eleanor hugged him tight, whispered, "You saved us too, that day on the highway you saved us." Miles did not understand, Richard explained. His voice thick. "We were lost, not just on the road in life. For 15 years we were lost, then we met you and remembered what mattered. What Daniel believed, what we forgot, that kindness is not weakness, that helping is not foolish, that one person can matter." Miles felt tears coming, fought them. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. For seeing me." Richard shook his head. "No, thank you for being who you are, for staying who you are when the world tried to make you invisible." They stood together, three people connected by one cold afternoon, one choice, one sandwich that changed everything. Asterisk. 5 years later, Miles Carter spoke at a conference about community development, about systematic change, about hope. He was 16 now, taller, confident, still quiet, still kind. He told the story again, but with numbers now, data results: 300 Friday tables across 20 states, 30,000 meals served every week, 20 towns with reopened clinics, 12 new libraries, 50 community centers restored, 800 kids with scholarships, thousands more with hope, all because someone noticed. All because someone cared. But Miles did not talk about himself. He talked about systems, one person. He said, cannot fix poverty, cannot reform education, cannot solve inequality, but one person can make one choice. And if enough people make that same choice, everything changes. The system is not them, it is us, all of us, choosing every day what matters more. He showed pictures not of himself, of others, the volunteers, the organizers, the quiet heroes in small towns doing the same thing, seeing people, helping people, refusing to look away. This is the real story, not about me getting lucky, about all of us deciding that nobody should go hungry, that nobody should suffer alone, that kindness is not optional. It is essential, and when we act on that, when we really commit, the world changes. It has to. The audience stood, applauded, but Miles was already thinking about next Friday, about the table on Highway 41 where it all started, where it continues every single week. Asterisk. Because kindness does not need permission, and dignity does not come from wealth. Sometimes the smallest act on the coldest road is enough to move the world. Sometimes the system only changes when someone it ignored refuses to look away. Miles Carter was that someone, but he does not have to be the only one. The choice is always there. On every highway, every sidewalk, every moment, waiting for someone to see, really see, and decide what matters more. The sandwich was just food. The highway was just a road. The moment was just a moment until it was not, until it became everything. That is how change works, not with thunder, but with quiet decisions. To be kind when it costs you something, to help when no one is watching, to believe that one person matters, that every person matters, that the system is just us choosing over and over what kind of world we want to live in. Miles chose. The Holbrooks chose. Now the choice is yours. What will you give when you are already hungry? Who will you see when everyone else looks away? That answer, that choice, that moment is where everything begins and where nothing ever stays the same.